And this, I feel like, is a perfect segue for us to talk about the spiritual leg, because
Absolutely.
this is how you come back into healthy relationship. And it is through remembrance. You are an eternal, divine spirit that is already perfect in every way. You just forgot. You just forgot in the world of Maya. It's time to come home to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to remember who you really are. And every day, if we don't come back into that remembrance, we go back into the sleep. We go back into the forgetting. We over-identify with our bodies, our emotions, our mind.
We're in that tornado.
We're in the tornado instead of like being at the center of that storm and saying, wait a minute, I'm not that. I am so much more. And then you can re-choose back into things that are aligned with love, consciously awake instead of fear. And that's the game changer. That's where everything changes, because you're like, wow, I am completely responsible for everything that shows up in my life. I am not those things, but I can choose into those things that are more aligned and a more authentic expression of who I really am every day, every day. That is so, so important. If we don't balance the spiritual component through remembrance, and I think the way we balance that leg is through different things can help us come back into remembrance, right? There's different practices and different ways that we can come back. So how about we talk about that? What are some of the things that you do to help you come back into the remembrance of who you really are? Not Jen, not the roles you play, not the relationships, not your body, not your emotions, your mind, but what brings you back.
Truly am. I think that writing is a big one for me. I have always been someone who loves writing, creative writing. And I think that writing really has been a big one for me, as well as going hiking. That has been one that's really brought me back into this remembrance. It pulls me away from the world and I can be connected. So writing, hiking, meditation has been an absolutely amazing space for me when I can set everything aside and be focused. It's kind of like pushing the mind aside to be focused into the spirit. And so those are just a few of those things that really help me be connected again. It's just the little things though. It almost, sometimes it happens unintentionally, where I'll be outside or I'll be with my dogs outside or on a walk with my husband. And all of a sudden it's like, whew, all of this information. Now for him, he is so left-brained. He's so into the mental aspect of things that he can't just sit and meditate with me. Like we've tried it and he can last maybe 5 minutes.
That's like my husband too.
And then I'm like sitting here like meditating.
Like, this is amazing.
And just
you need
breathing.
To do this.
Yeah. So then we do it together. And within 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, you can leave. You're done. And your energy is in my space. I can't focus.
Exactly. Yep.
But I find for him that when he feels aligned with his true self is when he's driving and listening to music that touches his soul. It brings him right back into his heart space where all of a sudden he's like, I need to do this and have all of this inspiration. And we have the deepest conversations when we're driving, because it's almost like that is his way of being connected. So for him, his mind is focused on something so his spirit can speak. And I find that to be true for a lot of us is maybe someone who plays the piano, right? Or music. It's like they have something their left brain, their mind, their ego can focus on. So then the spirit can speak, because the mind can take over so easily in stopping us from remembering who we truly are. And I think along with that is we're patterned here. We've been patterned to not be connected. It isn't as easy to do so. So stepping into this, it may be fearful. Like, oh my gosh, can I do this? How do I do this? Our mind can take over. And so sometimes we do need something physical to channel our spirit and to channel that divine connection, to take a step back and to feel that. And so that's why for me, I'm like hiking, journaling, the Epsom salt in a bath. Oh, I use
Oh,
stress
that's,
away, Epsom
yes.
salt. And that's when I'm the most creative. I notice that's when the most creative thoughts come to my mind. I have these big epiphanies, is when I'm just sitting in the tub, listening to music, not scrolling, because that's so easy to numb out again.
Well, just think about what we were talking about before, and you had mentioned the crystals. You
Yeah.
are literally in a bath
Mm-hmm.
filled with crystals.
Yeah. I
And with
never thought
crystalline
about that.
energy that increases your frequency immediately. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
magnifying
Yeah.
that frequency of light and love and relaxation. It's no wonder
It just
that would immediately just line you right up.
easily. And I notice also that using my spiritual gifts aligns me so quickly to who I am. And that's why I'm so passionate also about helping people step into those spiritual gifts, because not only are you living a heart-centered life, but it also almost helps bring this revival, this reaffirmation, this reconfirmation of who I am innately versus this physical form. So spiritual gifts has been one of the biggest ones for me as well. Yes. What about you?
Oh gosh, I relate to so much what you said. So many things in common. I mean, the number one thing that helps me come back to the remembrance of who I am is mindfulness. That's the quickest way to get there. So what I do with the mindfulness practice is I'll take 3 deep breaths. And there's different ways to breathing that, the breath is so powerful, but there are many ways to use the breath. And then also coming to the 5 senses.
Yes.
And what that does, if I really give my full attention to the 5 senses, it takes me out of the mental energy or the mental space and brings me into the energy of the present moment or the now, where I remember that I am the observer. I'm the observer or the consciousness that is watching this life, observing and experiencing it through the lens of a body and emotions and a mind. But at the same time, I'm not those things. It just gets me back here. Absolutely. To the present moment. And that's the thing again, how sacred is that? Why would being here fully in the present moment be so powerful and sacred and have such power in my life to bring me to the remembrance of who I am? I'm telling you, you can do both. You can be here and you can remember. And that is just so amazing. But anyway, I'm just never like,
mindfulness is a big one.
Yes, I just keep coming back to the power of mindfulness.
And I think that also when it comes to spirituality, I can feel that there can be almost like kind of a heaviness towards it, where spirituality has to show up a certain way. You have to believe a certain way. You have to have the structure of something certain. So like sometimes I'll work with people and they're like, man, I just feel disconnected from God. And reading scriptures or praying, like I just feel there's a disattachment there. And instead of making ourselves bad and wrong and saying, I'm not being connected anymore, it's like, what can I do that I need to do today that's going to help me be connected? And maybe that's going for a walk. And maybe that's going for a hike. Maybe that's playing music. Like it doesn't have to look a specific way every single time. We're evolving, we're growing. And that doesn't mean that you won't come back to that at some point. Because there are times where you'll send scripture to me where you're like, oh, this was such a beautiful passage. And then there are times where you send me a YouTube video or you send me a playlist of songs and I love them. Right. And so it's showing that like spirituality and connecting into that spiritual light doesn't have to look a specific way every single time. And it doesn't mean that you have to always feel like you need to show up a certain way, because there is such a heaviness towards
what that's supposed to look like.
Yes. And giving ourselves permission to explore it for what it is versus what it has to look like. And if someone is deeply wounded from maybe past experiences or past, religious beliefs, like it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It's just finding another way to fulfill that leg or to strengthen that side of the table.
Well, and what's so funny is, I was also baptized in 2012 into the LDS faith.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that is when I studied with my shaman, my Incan shaman. And I would never have, and a lot of people, when they hear that, like, you're a shaman and you're a Mormon, what, or you're LDS, their eyes cross. Like, I just don't know how to understand
how does that even work?
But for me, it has, my spiritual life has strengthened. It's sort of like it gave me a personal experience into what those scriptures meant from a full experience feeling aspect. It's not in the head, it's in a heart space energy where I can feel the deeper meaning of those lessons that were given. And part of that was like what led me to that. For one, Jeff was LDS and he was returning to the church, and we were coming back as a family and trying to create structure and faith for our family. But I could never have found alignment with that within my heart if I hadn't had my shamanic background, because
that's interesting.
I learned how to meditate, and I did journey work, and with the medicine woman that I worked with. And as I journeyed my multidimensional self, I explored for myself the dimensions. I was able to be with beings, and there was someone who was always there with me on these journeys. I noticed time and time again. And for me, it was Jesus. I always saw him with me, and he would take me on these journeys.
Absolutely.
And have me visit certain dimensions and do healing work. And that a lot of people feel like they have to choose. They have to say, okay, in order for me to connect with the divine, I've got to be religious, or I have to be spiritual. I can't be both. Look, it doesn't have to look any certain way. Absolutely. There is no certain way. First of all, you are already that.
Yeah. Okay. I love that.
So these things that have been given to us by our elders, by our teachers who have been in human form before, who left us these words of wisdom, who left us these tools like the shamans and our medicine people to help us reconnect and heal.
Absolutely.
Gosh, why just take it? Will you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's so many different,
so much abundance
avenues too. Like when I started working with you, I was very wounded. I mean, and I was still doing spiritual work, but I felt like inside myself, I was battling a lot of heaviness, a lot of rejection, not feeling accepted. And throughout this journey, I've given myself permission to explore my spirituality in a lot of facets, which still has the core of who I am, but it's given me permission to look outside of what I thought it had to be.
Yes.
Over identifying or over labeling,
like how it has to look,
how
this
it
way
needed
or that
to look.
Way. Like you came into what helps you, like you were mentioning earlier, it helps you connect with that remembrance is your work. It's connecting in with your gifts of spirit. And a lot of people, their gifts of spirit are being really activated right now. We all have gifts of spirit.
Yes.
And a lot of people kind of explore that path and strengthen those gifts. And that's what helps them kind of come into this remembrance, because the more you do mindfulness practice and meditation are able to come into the present moment, the stronger your gifts become. So a lot of people who are exploring their gifts of spirit, that is the foundational piece to help them strengthen their gifts of spirit, is the meditation practice, is this mindfulness practice. And again, you don't have to be still to meditate. There's moving meditations.
Oh, yeah. Or driving meditations.
Driving, dancing, Tai Chi, karate, jiu-jitsu.
So many forms.
Swimming. There's so many different things. It's usually something that keeps the body busy, but is repetitive.
It's the mind focusing to allow the spirit to speak.
And when you were talking before too about your husband, because Jeff also has the same issue. When I was a kindergarten, our
husbands are very, very, very similar.
Very busy. When I was a kindergarten teacher, there was a child that they felt had ADHD that was in my class. And the only way that I could get him to focus was so he could do his math, or he could do his literacy work or writing or whatever, was I would have him balance himself. I'd have him stand up and have him balance one leg on his chair while he did his work. And the reason he was able to concentrate is his body was staying busy. It was being given a job, a thing to do. So he was able to calm his mind and come into the present moment, so where he could focus on his task at hand. And so there's ways to work around everything if we really want to, but yeah, just brought to my mind. I was like, well, it makes sense why he would be driving. He needs to keep his body busy doing something. And then that helps him calm his mind. And then he becomes open and receptive.
Yeah. And he always had a hard time with school. The teachers were always like, he's, not the trouble student, but he gets bored easily, and there's a lot of kids like that. So absolutely. I'm excited because we have these ideas about talking about gifts of the Spirit. Maybe we'll talk about sensitive children as well. Like there's so many different ways to explore
right sensitive children.
Yeah. And there's so many things to explore and to unpack in all of it that like, it just makes me so excited to keep moving forward. But I know like this is such a beautiful foundation, is finding balance and going back once again. It isn't a checklist of things to do each day to find that balance. It's how are you going to raise your vibration in each area every day?